Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In podcast. After a week off, we head to Kansas City, Missouri for a pretty solid fight card, man. Absolutely killer main event between Ian Machado Gary and Carlos Prates. 14 fights for us to get into. Big card. As always, don't want to waste any time. Let's jump into last week, which was UFC 314. I did profit 3.41 units. Went 1 for 3 on the straight picks, though. I lost on Patricio Pitbull and Bryce Mitchell, but I know I hit pretty good. You hit even better on Dan Ige there, regardless of the stoppage. Unanimously up 2 rounds there. Looking at the prop section, that's where I did the best, man. Sumadarji, Mitch Raposo. I got minus 138 for flyweights who are not very dangerous. Should have been a bigger play for me. Nikita Krylov, Dom Reyes. Couldn't really find a parlay leg, so opted to play it straight. Another one hit with ease in the first round. And then what I think was my best play, that's why I saved it for last, man, was Volkanovski. I 4-5 decision at plus 160. I told you I really wanted to find a way to play Volkanovski. I thought the talent difference, was there. There was just a lot of red flags, and those red flags really wanted me to have plus money on that ticket. So 4-5 decision. Volk's not a big finisher, and Diego's a tough guy. So it went exactly how I kind of thought it was going to, and happy to profit 3.41 units. And toss it over to you, man. Good card from yourself.
I love a week where we're both profiting over 3 units, man. That's awesome. A little bit different for me. It was my straight picks that were good, my props that really hurt me. Biggest play of the year on Dan Ige at 3.5 units, evens out to plus 170. Like you said, unanimous on the scorecards. And I honestly don't think that stoppage was early. It was 20, right. I think it was 29 unanswered strikes by Sean Woodson right there. I don't hate it, even if he wasn't going, even if he didn't go down yet. I tried to play Patricky by decision as well. I tailed you on that pick. I don't know, man. It was a tough debut for the guy who's been fighting Bellator level fighters all his career. Now he steps into the UFC against a top 5 guy. It's hard to really knock him too much. Also on the Mitchell by decision, that didn't look good. Demeanor going into there, it didn't look good for him. And Gene Silva's just on a tear. Don't want to fade the fighting nerds right now. Then had Volkanovski to win in a parlay and Krylov to win as well. Krylov just didn't look great in there. I think the under was the play, and you touched on that a little bit. Ended up losing 2 units there, but still profiting 3.92 units on the night. Super happy with that for sure. Let's see. Going to our first fight of the night. It is in the bantamweight division. We have Chelsea Chandler taking on Jocelyn Edwards. This is Chandler's first time in 6 years actually making the bantamweight limit. She looked pretty decent for what it's worth. She's attempted to make the bantamweight limit 2 times in the UFC and has come in overweight. Honestly, she looks in decent shape, but I'm not sure what she's great at, man. She's a tough fighter, but I think against Jocelyn Edwards, she's a little bit more polished, about the same size, and I don't think Chandler's going to have that size advantage she usually has coming into the fight that she's going to be able to lean on. So I do expect Jocelyn Edwards to edge this out, but it is not a fight I'm looking to get involved in.
Yeah, easy pass for me as well. I think Jocelyn's skill for skill is by far the better fighter, just plain and simple. But Chandler's a pretty physical girl, and that can mean a lot in women's MMA. And wouldn't be so shocked maybe if she found herself on top a couple times in this fight, but I think the same thing could be said for Edwards. I think Edwards wins the decision. Pretty decent clip here, man. No interest in betting. Moving up the card, Timothy Kwamba taking on Romero. I don't have the biggest read on this one. I know you're a bit more confident. It's one of the more closer fights for me. Romero's coming off a pretty good showing on short notice where he drops David Onama. But, truth be told, really outside of him dropping him, and Onama's a good fighter, but outside of that one drop, I don't know. He didn't do as good as I think some people think he did. I think outside that knockout, it was a pretty easy win for Onama. But, yeah, Romero's super tough, man. His willingness to bite down and come forward is what I think might be actually better for Timothy Kwamba here. Timothy Kwamba is a guy who I think is a bit more reserved, willing to sit back and counter-strike. And in his last 2, I think he was just outgunned on the feet by his opponents. And this time around, I think he's going to have somebody who's going to come in there and give him the fight he wants. Somebody's going to force the pressure, make Timothy throw. And I do think that Timothy's a little bit better boxer, a little bit maybe potentially more durable as well. I think I can trust his gas tank a little bit more. So I'm on the Kwamba side, but I think it's a close decision. Probably, I do think it's a back and forth fight. Both guys probably going to sting each other. So good fight. Not so confident. I know you have a good size play on this one though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Roberto Romero in his true weight class at 145 pounds. For what it's worth, fighting up a weight class against David Onama, who is more or less a featherweight, but still at 155 on short notice, that's a huge step into the into the UFC. And I think he's getting a much needed step down in competition at his true weight class, and we'll really get to see what he can showcase. He throws with a ton of power, and for the first 2 rounds, he has really great footwork. And I think that that's going to play a big factor in this Kwamba fight, who, like you said, is a little bit more reserved at the beginning. I think that I expect Romero to either find a finish, even though Kwamba is durable, or at least bank the first 2 rounds before he does start to slow down and give up that third one. So a 29-28 decision is kind of how I see this playing out. But I loved it at Romero sitting at, I think it was minus 110. Looks like the Kwamba side is getting bet down a little bit. We're seeing minus 105 on Romero. So there's still time if you do change your mind to hop on it with me. But I do like Romero here to get the job done, most likely on the judges' scorecards, and kind of showcase his talent at 145 pounds. Moving up to the third fight of the night in the strawweight division, we have Jacqueline Amorim taking on Polyana Viana, and possibly the biggest odds-wise play I think I've ever tracked. I've got Polyana Viana by round 1, sub or knockout. She is 13-7 with all 13 of her wins coming by first-round finish. Jacqueline Amorim, she's shown some pretty promising talent. She's finished her last 3 fights. But when you look at the level of competition, I still think that she's relatively unproven. And she's somebody just 2 years ago who was getting decisioned by Sam Hughes, who, for what it's worth, is a decent fighter, but still not a high-level fighter. We've at least seen Polyana Viana finish the likes of Jin Yu Frey, Amanda Hebos. Like, those are girls, I think, just having those on the record to have faced that level of competition and come out on top, it's worth me taking a stab at 3% implied odds when the odds makers are giving her at least 15% at plus 550. It's the only way that I'd want to play this fight, but plus 3,200 just seems insane considering you look at every other book in the world and they're sitting at plus 2,000, plus 2,200 is the next highest.
Yeah.
Plus 3,200 is too good for me to pass up. And I'm a little partial to Polyana. I'm being completely honest, man. Yeah, she looked great in weigh-ins, and I'd love to see her get it done. Win me 16 units. I got half unit play on that plus 3,200, and I said it on Twitter earlier. I think every once in a while we deserve a little lotto ticket track.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to place it.
Best of luck to you, man. I 1,000% with you. Line's out of control. It's a play on Polly or pass. I kind of think her foot's a little bit out the door, and I think she gives up the takedowns a little bit too easily. And I think ultimately that, Amorim's going to find her spots here probably early. The gas tank situation, Sam Page, like, she's known for putting on a pace, so I'm kind of hesitant to really think that Amorim is like a really bad gas tank, because I told you about it when we were texting earlier this week. We were sold that Talita Alencar's gas tank was absolutely ass because of the Stephanie Luciano fights, but when Demopoulos can't defend a takedown, you need 3 of them, and you can ride out 15 minutes of top time. And so, I'm not so sold that Amorim even comes out there and rushes to find the submission. I'm not, I think she could find 15 minutes of top time here and win a decision. So I don't really think I'm going to have any action on this here, but I hope there's 16 units coming your way. I really do.
And truth be told, there's an easy hedge option where I could just put 1.5 or 0.15 units on Amorim by decision, because I love the way that you're looking at this fight. She really does only need the 3 takedowns. And although Polly's been getting finished, I do think that she's at least serviceable on the ground and could possibly avoid that submission, even if she is getting taken down.
Yeah. I know you got to play on this next fight, man. It's another one that I don't have the cleanest read on. Truth be told, I like the Malcolm Wellmaker side. At the end of the day, I think Cameron Simon is still kind of growing into, honestly, a grown man body, and he's facing a grown man, 30-year-old, who's making his debut here. And I think the defensive tendencies of Cameron Simon, the way he kind of rushes things in the pocket, I'm not rushing to put Wellmaker on the Peyton Talbot level, but I do see similarities in the way their footwork and the way they glide back, and are able to hit those step back counters. And I do think that could get Simon in trouble. The reason that I'm a little bit worried, I know you're on the Simon side, but you got a guy in Simon who is, on the L2, took one of the worst beatings in recent memory against Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot was plus or minus 1,000 to Randy Barcelos because of that performance. And then you got Wellmaker, who's coming off a fantastic performance on the Contender Series. Dude, typically you're going to see Wellmaker minus 200 in a spot like this. And so, a lot of times there's recency bias built in, and for some reason the bookmakers do know that Cameron Simon's going to compete in this fight. And so that's got me a little bit worried that I'm a little bit maybe overconfident on the Wellmaker side. I'm still going to trust myself that I think his striking and footwork is going to clip Simon and land the bigger shots here. I don't know if it's going to be a knockout, but I do think those bigger shots will make the difference, whether it is a finish or a decision.
Well, you touched on the reason why I am so high on Simon here. He took a year off, and he's still only 24 years old. I love that from him, man. He fought two really difficult stylistic matchups, one being against
C-Rod.
Yeah, C-Rod, who was just a terrible matchup for anybody trying to get the fight to the ground, and then Peyton Talbot, who had all the momentum going into that fight. I still think that we're going to see improvements from Cameron Simon, where, as you said, we're talking about a 30-year-old Malcolm Wellmaker here who has never lost, has never really faced too much adversity in his career, and he's a finished product from what I can tell, with still some holes in his game. I think that Simon will be the type of guy who is going to test him at the bare minimum, and getting him at plus money, I think that it's a shot that I'm willing to take every single time. I do expect him to make improvements, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he came out here after a year off, knowing where he's training, that he's made huge strides in his game. So getting him at plus money, I tend to agree with the odds makers, because you're right that considering their last two fights, the odds should be a little bit wider, I think. But I tend to agree with the odds makers here that this is going to be a close fight. I do see a lot of potential in Simon, where Wellmaker, I think that he will never really even sniff the cusp of the top 15. I think Simon still has enough potential to do that at some point in his career. So give me Cameron Simon at plus money. I think I have 1.5 units on it, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Moving on to a bantamweight fight, staying in the division, Damon Blackshear versus Alatang Haley. Honestly, man, this line's kind of gotten out of control. Since Damon Blackshear's gotten back into the UFC, he's had a really unplayable price tag just about every fight that he gets booked in. And I do agree that he's a good fighter. I'm just not sure where his ceiling is. He should beat Alatang Ali. This seems like a pretty decent matchup for him, as Alatang isn't really good anywhere. And Damon Blackshear probably can have his way with him on the ground. This just isn't a fight that I really want to get too involved in, considering Blackshear is sitting at minus 500 and his submission not even being 2-1. So there's not really a spot that I can pick to get this fight to get in on this fight, and it's low level enough that I'm not going to be upset if I am passing on it altogether.
Yeah, you and I both played Alatang Haley at dog odds against Cledson Rodriguez last time, so I'm always hesitant, when I know a guy can go out there at plus money and put a wrestling clinic together to try to fade him, because I do think he's not very dangerous. He could get reversed. He could get submitted from bottom, but I would not be shocked if Alatang Haley lands a takedown or so early in this fight. He's a pretty physical guy, but on the feet, in terms of submission, in terms of cardio, there's a lot that favors the Damon Blackshear side here. And I watched that fight back with Mario Bautista, the one that Blackshear took on like a week turnaround. Man, if that Blackshear shows up, he can compete with top 15 guys, and I think that form's more than enough to get through Alatang Haley. So I never really want to back Blackshear, someone who's come out there and been knocked out under 30, kind of got that first round chin sometimes. And so it's a little suspect, but yeah, I think Blackshear's a deserving favorite. Easy pass for me. Chris Gutierrez, John Castaneda, pretty done talking about this fight. I think it's the third time, right? It should be like 80% to go the distance probably. And I think I'm going to change up my pick this time. I think I'm going to be on the Chris Gutierrez side. I'm not going to play it, though. I do think he's a bit more technical, a bit more seasoned of a vet, and I think he could probably pull out the things needed in a fight that's going to go the distance. What I'm just more worried about, Castaneda does, though, I think he's a little bit more reliable to throw the volume, and maybe could find some takedowns. But if he does not find any takedowns, I don't see how he really outpoints Gutierrez over 15 minutes. So I like the Gutierrez side.
Yeah, I expect Gutierrez, as long as he gets those calf kicks working early, he could stifle the movement of John Castaneda, who will need to get on the inside of him. And yeah, I expect Gutierrez to just edge this out. But it is not a fight that I want to get involved in. The odds, even being in the Gutierrez side at 60%, it's too much for me to want to touch. So
yeah, I think it was like, what was it, like pick 'em both other times, and
yes.
now it's been up to like 60%. So
people have gotten to sit on it, come up with the same ideas that we have, and now I think that the line accurately reflects how this fight's going to play out.
I think Castaneda's pulled out twice, sick the last time or something. So yeah,
never a good sign, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris Gutierrez is the pick, but it's not one that I want to get involved in. And even if his decision is plus money, like I don't really like playing that game, getting greedy when we're not getting insane odds, you know?
You'll be sweating when Castaneda's on one leg, 2 minutes in.
Yes, dude, for sure. Moving up, we go to the lightweight division where we have a fight that's kind of come together at the last minute from both sides. Evan Elder taking on Gage Young. Both these guys, Missouri boys. Honestly, this is a fight where I see, almost the same fighter in both of these guys. Just one of them's 4 years older and is a little bit more polished, a little bit bigger. And I think that Evan Elder is going to edge this fight out, but they both have like really similar games. So I think Elder wins this, slight margins, and gets the nod on the judges' scorecards. Gage Young, I think that he has a lot of potential in the UFC, but this isn't a fight that I think he should be he's going to be able to take on short notice and put together a full game plan and win this. He was certainly fighting a much, much lower level prior to being booked to this, and I think that we're gonna see that play out.
Yeah, we see it very, very similar, man. I think these guys fight a whole lot alike. Very good mixed martial artists, know how to mix it up on the feet, know how to mix in the takedowns. I think they both have a solid gas tank, but I do think I can trust Evan Elder a bit more in the gas tank area. And I think Evan Elder will push the grappling later in this fight. I do think that's going to make the difference, just like the Quinlan Salkid fight on Contender Series. But I do think Gage Young's a pretty good prospect, and to his defense, I did look into it. Dude was supposed to fight next weekend. He is a Missouri guy, like you said. I think he's in fight shape, so I expect him to come out here, be able to take the punches, take the punishment from Elder, and compete in a hard, tough fight. I think Elder got a tougher fight than what he had previously booked, and the odds are indicating this. But I'm with you. Evan Elder probably just does enough, man, to edge this one out on the scorecards.
People's main event.
I know, volatile as it gets, man. At flyweight, we got Matt Schnell taking on Jimmy Flick. Honestly, man, if both of them call it quits on Saturday, you wouldn't be shocked because one of them's probably getting finished and the other one's going to absolutely ride off in the sunset if they can get a win. Neither one of them has anything of a chin. But, dude, like, Jimmy Flick's getting wobbled. Matt Schnell's getting put out cold, dude. I mean, I know it's difference in level of fighters, but one of them's going out cold, dude, bad. Matt Schnell's been finished, I think, in all 7 UFC losses. I'm pretty sure if I'd have to go back and look at it. But, I don't trust Matt Schnell's durability whatsoever, and it seems like I'm not one of them. But Jimmy Flick's been a popular underdog this week, man. This line's crashing down. I do think Matt Schnell is and has always been a better fighter. You can't lay minus 250 and even minus 160 on a guy with durability like that. And when Jimmy Flick is throwing flying fucking triangles in the UFC, he's dangerous, man. So easy pass for me. I'm excited to watch it though. Give me Matt Schnell.
I'm very tempted to put as especially considering the line coming down to the minus 150 for Matt Schnell. I think he's the better all-around fighter. You just have to dodge that chin that we're really not sure about. The caveat to that is Flick has never had a knockout.
Has he ever knocked anybody out?
He has never knocked anybody out, but we've seen him throw some pretty powerful overhand rights to set up his takedowns. And there's always a chance. Everybody has a puncher's chance, especially against Matt Schnell. But I think there's probably a way that you could play this where you put a few units on Matt Schnell, minus 150, and then just take the Flick by submission at plus 300 right now. I think that you could profit that way. I don't know if you want to get cute like that, but those are that's a pretty binary fight in my opinion. Either Matt Schnell just kind of outclasses him with his MMA ability, or Flick finds the submission after catching him, or Schnell just gets sloppy at one point, because Flick is a legitimate submission artist and he could certainly do that. Plus 300. I think that's his only path to victory, and he's sitting at plus 136 right now. So
we've been seeing a lot of movement close to fight time, and if the line keeps crashing, there's a point I played Matt Schnell. There really is.
100%. You just like I said, you just have to accept that he is the better MMA fighter. There's variance in every single fight, but I think if you play Matt Schnell at better than 60%, it is a plus EV play. Yeah. Let's see where we at. Here we go.
Main card.
First fight on the main card: Ikram Alaskarov taking on Andre Muniz. Man, this is a tough one because I hate the price tag that we have to play Alaskarov after he has kind of, in my opinion, kind of shown his ceiling. Robert Whitaker is nobody's ever walked through Robert Whitaker. Maybe Hamzat in his last fight, but nobody's ever really walked through Robert Whitaker. It was a huge step up for Ikram, and it's hard to bag him for that. But even when he's weighing in, he's not that big of a middleweight. He's never fought in a lower weight class, but he still carries some extra weight that makes me think that if he just trained a little bit harder, switched up his diet, he could be an excellent 170 pounder. Yeah. But here he is again, completely undersized against Andre Muniz and still having to pay a minus 600 on him. Truth be told, I think he has the wrestling and the striking to find the chin of Andre Muniz over 15 minutes. So I'm very tempted to play the minus 150 Alaskarov by TKO. But it just, for me, there's a few red flags, and I don't love paying the juice on a one path to victory. I do think that Alaskarov wins, but I'm just not interested in getting involved. And if I did, maybe Alaskarov by TKO with a Matt Schnell parlay, and it'd just be a super sketch parlay. Right. But that'd be the only way that I'd touch it.
I'm with you. I do think Alaskarov bounces back, and wouldn't be shocked one bit if it's a TKO. I probably do think that's the most likely path. I just don't really. I don't know how he gets it done. I don't think Muniz stands much of a chance. He's sub or bust, and he's sub or bust in the first 5 minutes, because I'm really not sold on his gas tank at all. But his arm bars are dangerous. I do think if Alaskarov is able to find his way on top in rounds 2 or 3, some ground and pound for top is super, super live. Spending too much time. I think Alaskarov gets the job done. I think he gets the job done inside the distance. It's minus 250, minus 270 for an inside the distance. I've considered it a parlay leg, and ultimately, man, if I can't find anything else with it, not opposed for a 1 unit to return 0.35 or something. I don't know. I think Alaskarov does get the job done inside the distance. Might even parlay him with the next guy I'm about to talk about, man. Randy Brown versus Nicholas Dalby. Good fight, man. Veterans, both pretty durable. Both have reliable gas tanks. I just think that Nicholas Dalby is at such a speed disadvantage, at such a length disadvantage, and he really relies on outpacing guys. I don't think he's going to be able to outpace Randy. I do think he's going to struggle to get to gauge the distance and get on the inside. I think he's going to get caught. I think he's going to get sniped if he does get on the inside. I think the ninja choke, the guillotine choke is super live. Randy seems like he wants to put a stamp on this one. Not sure if he saw weigh-ins. I think there was something that Dalby said to him or something on social media Randy's not happy about. Randy wants to go out here and put a stamp on this one, and I think the age speed difference could be real apparent. So maybe a Alaskarov inside the distance with Randy Brown. Feel pretty good about him getting the job done. Even if it hits the scorecards, it's something that you're going to get with Randy Brown,
Yeah. Randy Brown's not somebody I like trusting at juice. He's just one of these fighters who sometimes in the middle of the fight, it seems like he's trying to showboat a little bit too much, and he's not really focusing on the game plan that's going to get him the W. And that kind of worries me against somebody in Dalby who, yes, he's 40 years old, but always pushes a good pace, always has decent cardio. And if he is able to get you into those grindy positions, he can put on a snooze fest and win over just about anybody. And he's shown that in a couple of his, fights where he's been the big dog. He shouldn't really win because he doesn't have much of an edge anywhere in the fight, but he's a grinder. And if you let him utilize that grindy style of his, I could definitely see Randy Brown dropping a decision just because he isn't focused inside the octagon. But I have to agree with you that he is going to have a huge size, length, speed advantage, and he should be able to catch Nicholas Dalby. It's just not something I want to bank on, considering Dalby in 30-ish fights has never been finished, so that's something.
Asterisk there.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. It's still something that I think I don't want to bank on that, considering we've never really seen it.
Yeah,
asterisk. But it's enough for me to lay off for Randy Brown, even though I do agree he should win. He's just not the type of fighter I want to bet at with juice on him. Moving up to the middleweight division, Michel Pereira taking on Abus Magomedov. I told you last week I bet Dustin Stoltzfus because he had just signed a new 6-fight contract extension, and I thought that was a good sign. But as I looked into it more, I feel like that's almost a tool that the UFC's using to leverage fighters to taking tough matchups when they know that they're ending their contract. It did not work out for Nikita Krylov in his last fight. I think that Abus Magomedov was probably hesitant taking this fight against Michel Pereira, but you give him that 6-fight contract extension and he'll sign right away, dude. Abus is somebody who does slow down, and I am not willing to trust a striking Russian to implement a grappling game plan. I think a lot of people are focusing on him having a grappling edge, but he's not a fighter that usually goes to that. And I think Michel Pereira is athletic enough and has been in the UFC long enough to develop a game to avoid getting taken down, that if it's just a 15-minute fight, he can probably keep it on the feet. And I think that he is a little bit more powerful than Abus, which is maybe a hot take. They're both pretty powerful for what it's worth. But as Abus slows down, I kind of trust Michel Pereira more in the later rounds than I do Abus. Yeah, I've got Michel Pereira here. It's not by a huge margin, but I definitely favor him here. And minus 145 is certainly tempting, but it's just enough to kind of keep me off of it.
I'm on the other side. I think first real true disagreement this week. I did play a boost at plus 120 for a unit. I think on the feet, Michel Pereira has come in here and looked really good against Ihor, against Petrosky, guys he can go out there and get out super easy in the first round. I don't think Magomedov's a guy he's going to come out there and just put away in the first round. I think Magomed can hang with this guy on the feet. I don't think it's something he should go out there and proactively do in the first round, but I do think if this fight slips into 2 and 3, that if anybody's going to find top time, I do think it's Magomedov. He went out there and tried to wrestle Sean Strickland. He did submit Bruno Ferreira in the third round. I do think that, if there is top time late in the fight, it's the Magomedov side. He is a big middleweight. Pereira was a big welterweight, and sure, he fills out good for middleweight, but I think tomorrow night we'll see who, the true middleweight is. And then all that aside, man, Michel Pereira he's coming off an ass whooping, like an absolute ass whooping. And it was not just an ass whooping. It was one where you get put in a main event spot, you win this and you're a shot or two away from the title and you get clobbered, man. You get beat up bad. And I just kind of wonder how he bounces back from it. Where's the confidence at? Now you got to build up this big streak again to get something like that. And I just think it's a tricky spot to be in. And plus money was enough for me to be on the Magomed side. So I do think it's a pretty back and forth close fight that could go either way. And so, yeah, I thought it was 50-50. Moving on to our fight, the fight that means the most to us on this card, man. Giga Chikadze versus David Onama. Some closing line value on it. Both of us took a dog shot on Giga at plus 170. I've seen all I need to see in Onama's fights to know that he gets hit way too much to be standing in front of a world-class kickboxer, and you give me plus 170 on that. It was an easy click. It was one of our bets we did in the off week. I do know Onama's a dog. He's got good pace. But Chikadze's been in there with some elite featherweights, man. And I don't know. Romero's knocking Onama down in round 1. Landwehr's knocking you down. You and JSP are pointing, slinging down in the middle. I think Chikadze could come out here put a clinic on the feet, could go out here and hurt Onama. But I do know that there's points where Chikadze could fade. He could slow down. Onama could find himself on top and find the finish. And so I got 1.18 units on Chikadze to win 2. I got a unit on doesn't go the distance at plus 120. 5, I think. And so the only way that I lose here is with an Onama decision. So I think I'm in a good spot to profit here. And I like Chikadze to get it done inside the distance. Let you talk about how much you're going to make with Chikadze inside the distance.
Yeah, I mean, I picked him up in our fantasy league before the odds were out, and I was super surprised to see plus money on him. We did get some closing line value at plus 170, so I was super happy to jump on that. And I guess I'm thankful in hindsight that I didn't put more units on him than just one, because he did come in overweight. He has been off for a little bit. So there are a couple of red flags, but man, stylistically, I really do think he's going to do some work here, man. We've talked about David Onama in the past, sometimes getting touched up, his controller shutting off, and him just kind of standing there. And, from what I can tell, when he is getting touched up on the feet, he'll keep that guard super high. And I think it's wide open for Giga's signature Giga kick. And like you said, you can't protect the body, like you can be as tough as you want to be up top in the head, but that body is where I think that Giga is going to shine here. I also, after the weight miss, ended up tailing you on the fight doesn't go to decision, because there are some opportunities for Onama to capitalize on Giga slowing down, wind up on top, and find a finish there. But I think as long as this fight's standing, Giga is going to be the guy who gets this done. It's the only way that I lose money, similarly to you, is an Onama decision. Pretty much break even if Giga gets the dub. And then if Giga gets the finish, I'm on him by KO at plus 650, and it will return me 8 units altogether if Giga finds the finish. So,
let's go.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I hope that he can get this done and get me 2 points in the fantasy league, but I'm glad that we're both on the Giga Chikadze side here. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Anthony Lionheart Smith making his retirement fight against Mingyang Zhang. This is another one that I have 0.75 units on Anthony Smith plus 400, and I'm actually excited about it, man. When I look at Anthony Smith, he's going for his 60th fight, I think. I believe so.
Yeah.
And he is somebody who is in good standing with the UFC. He's on the analyst table. He knows that he has 1 fight left on his contract, and he has a smart team around him that can cherry pick opponents. And for what it's worth, we have a Zhang who, yes, has been lighting up the UFC since he entered, but he has never won out of the first round. And Anthony Smith, it's been 31 fights since he's been finished in the first round. This is somebody who I think if he could get past the first 5 minutes, it turns into a coin flip fight. And I would much rather have the experience of Anthony Smith to fall back on. So at plus 400, it was a really easy play for me. I think that he chose this fight specifically to end on. And it's a great one because you have somebody in Zhang who has all the momentum in the world getting these first round finishes, but is still relatively unproven. I mean, there's no easy fights at 205, but this would, in my opinion, would be one of the easiest fights that somebody is coming off of multiple wins from, that Anthony Smith could pick up. So I think that this was a calculated risk that he's taking here, and getting him at plus 400, I think is value all day. And I'm happy to put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah. Win-win for the UFC. If Mingyang Zhang wins, their Chinese specimen just beat Lionheart, and is now fighting top 10, top 15 guys. But yeah, like you said, he's in tight. He's the commentator. He didn't take the disqualification against John Jones. He's in tight with the UFC. And so, they're just like, Anthony, take this guy down, pull the guillotine, so he's turned back Petrino. He's turned back Ryan Spann. It's not out of the question. Man, the last 2, he just looks slow. And the Dominic Reyes holding on to the single leg, just taking the punishment. It doesn't look good. I know it's been 30 fights or whatever, like you said, since Smith has been finished in the first round. But I do think if you had me pick that's probably how it's going to happen. I think Mingyang Zhang is just a little bit too quick, a little bit too powerful at this stage in his career. But I did play the under 1.5 here at minus 172. I think that should be 75%, minus 230 or something. I truly think that 25% of the time, maybe Anthony gets it past the 7.5 minute mark and rides out some decisions or something. But I think ultimately, if Anthony Smith gets on top, he's finishing probably pretty quickly. And I think if Ming Yang Zhang's win, it's in the first round. So I know it was minus 200, minus 210 on some books, and FanDuel opened it up at minus 172. So I was happy to jump on that. I think we see violence under a round and a half here.
So just to touch on it, I agree. I think that it is most likely that Zhang gets the first round finish in the only way that he's been able to finish a fight in his career. But at 80%, Anthony Smith just has to get out of that first round. In my head, 30% of the time for this play to make sense. So yeah, again, I'm happy that I get to play him one last time, ride that train one more time, and see if it works out in my favor.
Insane main event. Ian Garry versus Carlos Prates. I bet Ian Garry. I just kind of want to continue the trend, man. It was just a unit, but I bet him at minus 130. If you've watched the podcast for any amount of time, zero secret. My thoughts on this guy's skill set, so many out of octagon things that can make you not like Ian Garry, but skill set wise, man, I think Ian Garry is an elite fighter. I think Ian Garry is a top 5 welterweight in the division. He's got footwork, cardio, striking, grappling. Again, I think he's a world-class fighter, whereas I think Prates is a really good fighter. I think he's a bit one-dimensional, man. Prates he's really good knockout artist, but he's knockout or bust. He's never going to go out there and put a pace on you. He's never going to go out there and grapple you, probably never going to go out there and take the back and submit you. But, and there's things that have shown me the way Garry backs up, keeps the hands down. He's been dropped. He's been hurt, but I really do trust the fight IQ and the skills of Ian Garry to go out here and put a game plan necessary to beat someone like Carlos Prates. If Carlos Prates wasn't just the UFC's shining, rising superstar right now, I think Ian Garry comes in here minus 200 or something. So, yeah, I like Ian Garry, man. Again, no secret how I felt about this guy's skill set, and I think this is a massive step down from a Shavkat, from a Jeff Neal, even from an MVP, man. So, Ian Garry on Saturday.
Dang, I can't knock it. And for what it's worth, you are getting line value as the line is closing into the minus 170-ish range on Ian Garry at this point. But I am disagreeing, man. I like Carlo Prates here. The only way that I like him, though, is by knockout. He's coming off of 4 performance of the night bonuses. And for what it's worth, the last thing I want to do is fade a fight nerd right now. We talked about it with Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva last week. I think we've got a similar style here where it's like, Ian Garry has been dropped by much lesser competition in the UFC already, and Carlos Prates throws very similar strikes to Song Kenan. When Song landed the straight down the pipe, I mean, that's what's catching Ian Garry, and Ian Garry is sitting at like 50% takedown accuracy. I think if he isn't setting up those takedowns and he chooses to come straight forward with them, he's going to get caught up the middle with the weapons that Carlos Prates has. And, I do think that he catches him. After I saw face-offs, if you just look at the size of Carlos Prates' head, it's like 50% bigger than Ian Garry's. Ian Garry, it just looks like he can't take a punch, and I think that Prates is not the guy you want to test that with. Yeah. So Prates by a knockout, I think, is sitting up above plus 200 now. And, I think that would be how I look to play this, considering – we haven't really seen him over 5 rounds, and I think the later it goes, the more it favors Ian Garry. But those first 3 rounds, man, I don't want to fade the momentum of Carlos Prates right now. I think he probably does find that 5th performance bonus in a row, and he finds the knockout. So I wouldn't be surprised if I'm actually on the other side. I might bet a half unit at plus 200 for the Prates KO, and just call it a night. Won't be too upset if it misses, because you're right. I think that Ian Garry is at least the more well-rounded of the two and has more paths to victory. I'm just not sure that that's the path that's going to be the outcome on Saturday.
Yeah, man. 14 really good fights going down in Kansas City. Wish we could have made them. Ian Garry's my dude. Wish I could have watched that one live. But yeah, make sure you guys tune in next week for next week's card, and we'll keep our plays out on Twitter this week. Talk to you guys later.
Peace.